It's Friday, and I'm back with the next in our Fanzine Friday series. Today we're taking a look at the Beholder number 3. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer, and this is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, I take a fanzine from my collection off the shelf for a closer look. And today from 1979, this is the Beholder number 3. Hope you enjoy the video. From June of 1979, on today's video, we continue our look at the fanzine called The Beholder. It's a heavy stock cover, the size we're used to, and then just regular paper folded in half and stapled through the middle. Let's take a closer look at this art. We've got this giant chicken monster here on the front with this guy, again, with a kind of funky looking shield in front. There's a closer view of the art. And again, this art comes to us from Guy Duke, one of the two principals responsible for the Beholder. I really like the art on the cover of these magazines. They're always something a little bit different and interesting and fun. Love the giant chicken. Not really sure what monster that is. This one's got just a few things in it. Some of the articles are a little longer. Got the editorial, magic system, like a discussion of the spell point system for D&D, monster summoning, which are new D&D monsters, the Villa of Menopolis, which is their adventure, viewpoint, and treasure. A couple of articles there. You'll see at the bottom some new names. In addition to Guy Duke and Mike Stoner, who are the principal people, you've got Huw Williams and John Norris with some new articles, and then John Stoner, I think, has just one contribution. Here's our cover, and remember, they did reprints, so I don't have a copy to show you of the 40 pence, which would have been the original printing. This is mine, is the second printing or first reprint. Then there's a third, and then there's a fourth. And one of the things you'll notice, right, these are all, it just so happens, green in tone, but it changes a little bit in terms of what exactly the color is over time. And again, the only way you'd really notice what you have here, other than a color difference sometimes, is the price that's down there at the bottom would change, and that would represent the current going price of the fanzine when they did the reprints. Here's our editorial. The normal stuff at the beginning. He says this is going to feature main articles on a new spell system that is focused around spell points. Reminds folks we come out monthly. You can subscribe. You'll get those. Then you'll get your subscription sooner than if you get them at your local store. Plus, they think it's better for them. And a reminder that they're trying to do a monsters issue coming up sometime soon that'll be completely focused on monsters. They tend to have a lot of D&D monsters in here every time, I think, but they want to do a complete issue, I guess, focused on that in the near future. Here's their magic system. It is, as you can see, a fairly decent sized article and a discussion of an alternate to Vancian, as we call it, Vancian magic, which was Gygax's system, where you pick the spells or even the cleric spells, right? You memorize those in the evening or at the beginning of the day, and then that's what you had in your mind. When you used it once, then that spell sort of disappeared from your memory, and you're left with other spells, with whatever other spells you had memorized for the day. So you're going to have to pick ahead of time. And so one, I think, of the primary values of the spell point system, which is a really common idea. You see it in Alarms and Excursion and the Wild Hunt, lots of discussions back and forth, and all kinds of fanzines have brought up similar concepts. One of the principal values of that is you have the points you can use for the day, but you don't have to pick the spells. Now, in his system, the clerics pretty much have all the spells or prayers available. The magic users still only have those spells that are in their book, so there's some limit there. But whatever spells you have learned are available to you. And then when the situation arises, you can choose to use this or the other, spell that's most effective rather than picking one for the day. One of the things I think that is most interesting about this concept, it's going to allow or cause your magic user players to use spells that they'll just never pick, right? And there's lots of spells in there that might be good in a circumstance, but you're never going to have picked that spell ahead of time because you're going to go with something that's got the most broadly applicable use, most likely, right? That's why you get people pick the magic missile, sleep, charm person spells at first level most often. And so this gets more spells sort of into the mix, gives some more creativity to the magic user player. The other thing that they say they're doing here, and doing very much on purpose, is getting magic users to have more than one spell at the very beginning. So what's their concept here? And so they take for the clerics and druids, they take your wisdom, divide by 3, round up, and then multiply by your level. So let's say you had a 15 wisdom, divide by 3 would be 5 spell points, first level. Second level you have 10, etc. Magic users, you take your intelligence, you divide by 2, round up, and multiply by level. So let's say you had a 17 intelligence, divide by 2, round up, that'd be 9 points at first level, 18, 27, etc. as you go up. And you still have limits on what level you have to be to learn new spells. So like a first level magic user, no matter how many points you have, you can only cast a first level spell. At third level, you can do second level spells. At third level, you can do second level spells. At fifth level magic user, you can do third level spells, etc. So they kind of track, the same type of limitations that existed there before, in terms of when, for example, you're going to be able to first cast a fireball, right, as an example. The other thing they have in here, which is kind of interesting, is, Rangers in first edition, they get spells, and Paladins get spells, and so they've got a different mechanic for them. The Ranger, when they get to sufficient level, it's the wisdom, the number of points of your wisdom stat over 13, and then how much your level exceeds 8th level for the Rangers. And then Paladins, they get how much your wisdom exceeds 10, and then how much your level exceeds 19. So let's say you had a 14 wisdom, that'd be 4. In your 9th level, you get 4 points. Your 10th level, you get 8 points. Clerics have a special thing that he works in here, which I hadn't seen before, which was sort of like this ability to cast something that costs more points than you actually have available. And it's basically, because you're praying to your god, you have some chance that the deity will hear you and look favorably upon that and give you an ability to do that. But they don't let the Rangers or the Paladins ever get into that. So one of the things I thought here and then with magic users, you have a chance of a failure, a 5% chance, which is, pretty decent chance of failure. You could lose some spell points, you could be knocked out, you can backfire for double or triple damage. I don't love that necessarily, but I do like some chance of failure is kind of an interesting comment as part of their spell system. I wanted to look at the points and just pull some up. This is magic user first through third. And so there's cleric table, druid table, illusionist table, magic user table. But one of the interesting things about this is the allocation of spell point cost, right? So effect normal fires takes 1 point, charm person, for example, takes 4. And that's a particularly interesting part about doing a spell point system, is deciding what point value, if it's not just based on level, you're going to assign to different spells. And this, in a way, right, is really almost like some, for example, third level spells have the same cost as some second level spells, and some second level spells are more expensive than most of the third level spells. And that's almost like a reallocation of what level to make the spell. I mean, there's one issue is when you're allowed to learn spells of that level and cast them. So that's more or less stays the same in their system. But then with the point allocation and the way it works, you can be casting second level spells, like I said, that are the same point value as some first level spells, and then some first level spells you can cast 5 times before it's as much as a second level spell. So it's, in some ways, there's a lot of thought that goes into the point allocation and deciding which things are more powerful. But it really, I think, ultimately is Mike Stoner's view of which spells are the most powerful spells in the game, and I'm going to make those cost more points for some, for whatever reason. Again, I think it does a good thing of encouraging use of less common spells, the ones you would never really pick in real life to memorize. I would probably, I'm giving a lot of thought, but I did think about it as I was reading this article. I mean, I would probably say like first level, let's say those are going to be 1 to 5 spell points, right? And then second level, those are going to be 6 to 10 spell points or something like that. So that it doesn't make sense to me that a second level spell, that even the least likely to be used second level spell costs less than first level spell, right? I mean, it's a second level spell, it should cost more points. But in any event, you can kind of get a sense here of where these things work. Fireball, Lightning Bolt, 24 points. Dispel Magic is 30 points. That's the most expensive third level spell. And then you got some things like Blank Flame Arrow, Lehman's Tiny Hut. Those are only 10 points. So interesting. And then I thought I'll share with you just an excerpt here of the Cleric spells, which again are probably the most common things in your game, and you can get a sense of the same thing is going on here, right? You've got some second level spells and some third level spells sometimes can be cheaper than the level down from them. And I think that's probably an oddity that I would address in a spell point system. Interesting, Cure Light Wounds, which I think is by far the most commonly picked Cleric spells, only 2 points, whereas Bless and Command, Protection from Evil, and Sanctuary are 3-point spell point spells or prayers. And again, you can kind of see what he's doing here. Like I said, this article was very well done. The system's well thought out, and I really like the spell point system. I think it's very intriguing. I sometimes let my clerics pick a spell, right, rather than write down what they're going to pick for the day. I'll say, like, just to make it a little bit different. Plus, I like to encourage clerics. So because I feel like they're praying in combat or whenever they're casting, that they're able to reach out to their deity and ask for whatever it is they want. Whereas magic users is a little different. And I like the spell point system. I think it's an interesting idea. They claim that one of the things it does for magic users is make them more useful, if you use that word, in first, second level, but less powerful at the upper levels, which is, of course, a nice game balance trade-off. You would want to try to do that, it seems to me. Let's take a look at our monsters. We have several this time. The first one here is from Huw Williams. It's called the Kelpie, a small evil water spirit that looks like a Nixie, can also polymorph itself into a horse-like form. They live in fresh water. They can swim. They can also float in the air, and they can obviously polymorph into a horse. They can cast a suggestion spell 3 times a day, but only once per against any particular person. It doesn't really say anything about them. I mean, their alignment is chaotic evil, so I assume they're going to try and draw you into the water and kill you, but it doesn't really get into a lot of what their motivations or behaviors might be. The second monster here is the Helz, H-E-L-Z, and that's by Mike Stoner, and here's a blow-up of the art. These are disembodied skeletal hands that float in the air, highly dexterous, and they'll usually punch you for 1 to 4 points of damage. They are undead. They can be turned like a zombie. And there's similar resistances to things like sleep and ESP that most undead would have. They may try and grab your equipment, and then like a wand or a sword, and then use it against you. And they basically get a D20 roll, and if it's over your strength, then they're able to snatch something away from you. And so basically they can kind of be a nuisance monster, and you see the number appearing 2 to 40. So you get a whole bunch of these crazy little hands after you. That's going to be, bad news. Then we have a couple of interesting ones here, again from Mike Stoner, the Rook and the Knight. These are, the Rook looks like a little miniature tower, tower about 12 feet high, and he has little wheels underneath, so he rolls along and he'll basically roll you over. There are lawful evil and lawful good versions, and they basically, like I said, will just charge you if they decide to attack, and that'll do 3d6 damage of sort of trampling, blunt impact damage if they hit you. The Knight, again, can be lawful evil or lawful good. They look like a chess piece. The horse can bite you, and the rider can hit you with a sword, so 2 attacks per round. You can't dismount him because they're connected like a chess piece. He can move around at a movement rate of 12 or 24 if he wants to all-out sprint, and he can leap 25 feet to either land on you and suddenly attack you with surprise, or to get away from you if the battle is not going well. Here, let me back up. Here's our next one, is the Hellfig. This is by John Stoner. This is a giant spider creature, 10 legs and crushing mandibles. What it basically tries to do is it bites you with the mandibles and then it won't let go. And so every round it does, it's 2d6 plus another 2 points of damage, which increases to +2, then +4, +6 of crushing damage. The bite also will cause disease of hemophilia, which makes you bleed like crazy. And basically, if you don't make your saving throw and you're affected, if you get cut, you begin to bleed out. You'll die from any wound within a day if you don't get a cure wound spell to completely heal that wound. And if you get a blunt impact, you die within 3 hours of internal bleeding, again, unless your wounds are completely cured by magical means. The next one we have the art for here, is the Yeti Naga. And so it's a Naga just like the 3 that we've talked about before, I think they were in strategic review by this point, as well as in the monster manual. I'm not sure if it had come out by June in '79. I think it had. Yeah, it had. And so the Naga is a relative, except for it lives in cold weather. It's basically invisible against snow and things like that. D4 damage plus poison from a bite, and its main attack is to try and constrict you. And then finally we have the swordfish, and the swordfish basically is a large swordfish. It can go through the air and it'll attack you. It'll sort of charge at 48 movement rate and try to impale you. And he says if that attack is successful, you've been impaled and you die. I probably wouldn't kill you instantly, but I'd probably do a pretty severe wound that's going to lead to death from that. And then they can swing their sword beak back and forth, hitting you for 1d10 points of damage. Although there is a chance if they hit against plate mail armor that it might break. So there's a little bit of risk to him to try and do that. He also he likes the Monster Mark, Don Turble's Monster Mark system. It appears in White Dwarf. It's a way to sort of give power rankings, if you will, to monsters. And so he's gone through and tried to give power rankings to all the monsters that have been in the Beholder in issues 1, 2, and 3. All right, so now we have our adventure. It's the Villa of Menopolis. And this one is not a competition dungeon. They said they've been getting some requests from readers not to do that, to do sort of just drop-in dungeons. I don't really see the huge difference, obviously, other than using the pre-gen characters or not, making it part of your campaign or not. I feel like any of these dungeons could be used to drop into your local world if that's something you, the DM, wanted to do. This one I like a lot. This is for first level characters. It's a nice introduction to D&D. And in particular, one of the things that's nice about it is there's not much combat. There's role-playing, and there's basically a series of rumors. You've got to figure out this mystery. You're sent to this location by somebody who, in some way, shape, or form, is comparing about these things called the Grimlow dwarves, like gremlin dwarves, kind of some weird subterranean creature that's somewhere between a gremlin and a dwarf. And you're told that they layer underneath of this village, and so you go there and you're trying to figure out if that's true, figure out the right rumors, figure out who in town can help you get connected, and figure out how to find your way to their lair. That's the bottom line. And so lots of XP for the role playing and for the solving and figuring out of the rumors, or the storyline is most of your experience points. Here there would be a little bit of combat at the end when you find your way to the subterranean layer of these creatures, and there's also a guy you're trying to rescue along the way. I think it's the brother of the guy who comes to you and tells you about this place and sets you off on your quest. It's very well designed. I think that everything about it makes sense. It's got a really nice storyline, and if you can sort of get started on the rumor mill, you can sort of work your way, hopefully decent players, pretty sequentially down through those to solve the puzzle. Okay, so John Norris has got an article here. You remember when I talked about the trickster, and I sort of made this offhand comment about they learn every language, which are like hundreds of languages, which seemed unrealistic. John Norris had the same observation. But his reaction to that was to say, but the problem is that D&D has too many languages. And so he's got a couple of page essay here about the fact that he thinks the D&D language system is hogwash, especially this idea that every monster has its own language. He says he doesn't think intelligent creatures don't each make up our own language. Like people in, the United States don't speak a different language from Canada, although they might speak French. But he said, generally different people that live in different areas don't make up their own languages. And so if you had all these different types of creatures that live in the same place, they wouldn't each go around making up their own language. They'd speak the language of the area around them. To some degree, I think the hundreds of languages doesn't make sense. I don't know that I completely agree that everyone's basically just going to learn the common tongue or a regional dialect, right? But he goes through very critical of D&D's language system. He's got his own sort of thoughts on that, and he comes away with his own idea, which are these, more of dialects and a few common languages, and then obviously things like animals and plants and so forth. He's like, they don't speak any language at all, just sort of like in our world. They may be able to communicate in a rudimentary way, but they certainly don't have unique languages that you need to learn. And so therefore, based on this, he's got, his trickster's going to be able to make some communications here because the number of languages he needs to know are more limited. It's not really clear to me what he does about, I think the way he deals with plants and animals is gives him like animal training and some type of plant control spell. But generally, it's not through communication. I think that kind of messes up the class. But, everyone's got to work that out for themselves. And I agree with his concept of this idea that we've got the alignment languages, we've got the racial languages, we've got all the monsters with their unique languages, is probably a little over the top especially in terms of what that results in. So interesting, thoughtful article. And clearly I wasn't the only one who thought this sort of core concept of the trickster learning hundreds of languages did not make sense. But, it's a fantasy game. It's also the answer to everything if you feel like you need that answer. So here's an article. I assume it's Mike Stoner's article on gems and jewelry. This is before the DMG has come out. And he says he's got his table here. So when you find there's a gem, instead of just saying there's a gem, you got a D100 to roll what type of gem it is. And then based on the type of gem, you go over to table 2 and you roll up the value of that. And then he's got an interesting thing called illusion quartz that he's created, which is a gem that's just simple quartz, not very valuable, but it looks like one of the other gems on the list until you dispel the magic that's on it. And then these jewelry, you just roll to see what type of jewelry it is: rings, necklaces, bracelets, brooches, scarabs, etc. And then based on that, again, there's a second table where you roll the value to find out how much of it is worth. Again, pretty useful, especially because he says the DMG has not come out yet, and so we need something in the meantime. Here's our last page, the typical stuff: advertisements, copyrights, subscriptions, and a blurb about the coming monster issue, and encouraging people once again to send their monsters in to the Beholder for the Monster Special issue. That's our look at the Beholder number 3 from June of 1979. Hope you all are enjoying our videos. I hope you like the channel, and I hope that you're subscribed. If you've got some friends who might enjoy our content, I hope you will send them our way, and we're trying to reach our 1,000 subscribers, hopefully by the end of the year. Hope you guys have a great Friday, have a great weekend, and until next time, my friends, keep rolling 20s.